If you want to get over 10 million views per video as a YouTuber, you need to understand curiosity, but so few people do. So I'm going to explain to you how to use curiosity to get people to click on your video. Let's break this down real quick. The crazy part here is that our current understanding of curiosity didn't really come into play until 1994 when a guy called George Loewenstein created what we now know as the curiosity gap. So if you're a YouTuber, you've probably heard of the curiosity gap. And the way he explained it was with a little chart like this, okay? Curiosity was in the middle here. Okay, I'm gonna badly draw curiosity here. Okay, it's in this gap over here. This is where the curiosity sits. And then where the curiosity doesn't sit is under this line over here. And this comes from knowing too little, okay? This will make sense in a second. And over here, this comes from knowing too much, okay? And so the way a curiosity gap works is that you can only hook somebody if they know enough to be hooked, but not so much that they think they know everything about the subject. So if you think you know everything about YouTube growth, I can't make you curious about a new technique to grow on YouTube because you think you know too much, and so you're in the no curiosity zone, right? But if you don't even know YouTube exists, so you're in the too little zone, then I can't say, oh, there's a new technique to grow on YouTube because you're in this zone. You're not in the curiosity zone. And so that's how a curiosity gap works, is you want to make sure to get people into this zone. And there's many different ways to do that. Now, in my opinion, this graph that he used is not that clear. I much prefer this graph over here, okay? This graph over here. And so curiosity is on the y-axis, and then knowledge is on the x-axis, okay? So the curiosity peaks over here, kind of similar to this, okay? Where the viewer knows enough, right? They know enough to be able to become curious, but not so much that they think they know everything, right? So that's, in my opinion, a way better depiction. That's, at least for me, way easier to understand. And so how do you use this to make somebody curious? Well, there's so many different ways. In another video, I talked about the but rule. The but rule is one of the most powerful ways to hook somebody in, and it's basically a basic curiosity gap. So for example, if we want to hook somebody in with a visual, like the first clip the viewer sees in a video, we want that to be really interesting so they stick around. What could we do? Well, if we're making a video about Rubik's Cubes, right, that visual, in order to fulfill the curiosity gap, we want to make sure that it's not something they know too little of, but not something they know too much of. If I were to show just a regular Rubik's Cube here, you know, the square one that everybody knows, then we're kind of in the too much territory here. Like, there's nothing special about this. The viewer doesn't think they need to know anything else about that. It's not an interesting clip. It doesn't create curiosity. On the other end here, we wouldn't want to show an object that is just impossibly hard to visually understand. Like, it's very intricate, like it's just too many moving parts, too confusing. That would be like, I don't know, some sort of a mess here. That's too much. You don't understand it. So something that's been done, that's right in the middle here, is a triangular Rubik's Cube. For a bit, that was a good way to hook people in. It was like, oh my gosh, it's a Rubik's Cube, but it's triangular. And then when people started getting understanding that and getting used to seeing that around, it stopped being as powerful. So it started coming a little bit further on the right here, let's say over here. And so the next one would be a circular Rubik's Cube. That doesn't make sense. Rubik's Cubes are cubes, right? This is a circular one. And so this, to this day, kind of works really well. And if you look up like weird Rubik's Cubes, you'll see a bunch of them. There's squishy Rubik's Cubes. There's like weird like cipher ones. That, in a nutshell, is how you could use it to create a curiosity gap here. Now, what's interesting about curiosity is that this definition, like I said, came in 1994. And so an even simpler graph to understand than the one I just drew here, if this is still kind of hard to understand, is let's say there's a cliff, okay? So you have a cliff here and then here. So this is cliff 1, this is cliff 2, and then you have this huge drop here, okay? George Loewenstein says curiosity is just a gap between what you know, so I'm gonna do a K here, and what you want to know, okay? This is curiosity. If there's a gap between what you know and what you want to know, you get curiosity with a big C. That's curiosity. Now, before George Loewenstein, there were other definitions of curiosity, and I want to talk about a couple of them because while they've been kind of updated and changed for George's one is the most like kind of understood and accepted, they're still kind of interesting to know because they can help shape how you hook viewers on YouTube. So the one before that was by a Swiss scientist called Jean Piaget. He's not French, he's Swiss, big difference, even though they both speak French. Jean Piaget saw curiosity more as like a cognitive state, okay? Cognitive state. And so George Loewenstein was just saying, okay, there's a gap between what I know and what I want to know. Piaget was a bit more about something called cognitive conflict, okay? So let's say a kid, they see something in the world that they don't understand, okay? And so it creates conflict in their brain and they need to figure it out. So that's why it's kind of like a cognitive state. It creates cognitive conflict. Why is this important to understand? And why should you not just like understand George Loewenstein and move on? Well, because this ties into one of the most powerful things you should do in a YouTube video. One of the biggest directors in the world has a quote about this that is just massive. And if you understand this and take it to heart, your videos will improve. Alfred Hitchcock says, you need to make your viewers suffer. And like on the surface, that doesn't make sense. But once you understand Jean Piaget's definition of curiosity, all of a sudden it starts to make sense, right? If this is cognitive conflict, conflict is a sort of suffering, you could say. In order to make a good video, you want to create cognitive conflict or make viewers suffer, okay? And so when you think about a video here that gets high retention, that makes a viewer watch till the end, the suffering makes sense now. Alfred Hitchcock has a famous bomb scene where a bomb is ticking under a table. The viewer's wondering, is it going to blow up? When's it going to blow up? Are they going to be able to defuse it? What's going to happen next? They're suffering. They're on the edge of their seat waiting to see what happens. And YouTubers so often do the exact opposite of this. They have a great video idea, and then they create zero suffering, right? Curiosity is the act of wanting to discover things, and storytelling should be the act of manipulating your story so that you create mental suffering in the viewer that makes them want to keep watching, keep turning pages, keep watching the movie, the video, etc. And so if there is one thing you take out of this video, it would be this Alfred Hitchcock quote, like make the viewer suffer. This is like, if you had a one-liner that would help you get better retention, get viewers to watch longer, it'd be this one. Like, withhold information. Keep something until the very end so that they want to watch it, and constantly introduce new information and have constant problems and obstacles. And that's how you make them suffer and stay. It kind of makes you realize it's kind of like a very masochistic, I think is how you say it, right? But there's one more kind of definition of curiosity that I want to talk about, and it's by a guy called Sigmund Freud, okay? So Sigmund Freud had this big definition of curiosity. What's interesting is that George Loewenstein, so the guy who has the definition that everyone accepts today, he's one of the most cited scientists in the world, he's actually Sigmund Freud's like grandson or great-grandson, so kind of crazy. It's a crazy tangent. I probably lost like 10% retention there. But anyways, I thought that was kind of crazy. And so Sigmund Freud defined curiosity not as a cognitive state, not as a gap of information, but as a drive, a biological/emotional drive. When you understand that curiosity is a drive, it also ties back to the suffering, because all of a sudden you don't just like make a video. You need to give the viewer a reason to watch to the end. You need to have them want to have a drive or reason to stay till the end. Otherwise, they're not going to stay. And so I feel like this is a really good definition of curiosity to understand as well, because of the way it portrays curiosity. So that, in a nutshell, is curiosity. And there's a lot of different things I could hop into here. Yeah, we'll make some more videos on this later. Anyways, peace.